Hey guys, Omni here. I just got back from seeing the New Mutants, and this movie exists. It's real. I saw it. This movie became a meme just out of all the different delays and changes of the date. Was this going to come out in theaters? Was it going to come out on streaming? Were they going to release it at all? There were so many question marks when it came to this movie, but it's finally here. It exists, and I half expected to go in, and after all the trailers were said and done, that we were just going to get a brand new date right up on the screen just to kind of just further troll the audience that has been waiting on this movie. I remember seeing the first trailers for this and being really intrigued about the premise of it. But after having seen it, I definitely understand why the studio was so kind of on the fence about what to do with it, especially once it transitioned from Fox over to Disney on how they would distribute this, if they would distribute it. And I further read earlier today too that there were considerations to completely scrap this movie and start over from scratch. And you can definitely see the cracks in the armor that is the story, the plot, the pacing, the construction of this movie. Let's start with the positives in this. I think the special effects in this are really good. And I think the casting choices were really good too. I think that was a lot of the enjoyment. I think a lot of the characters were very endearing, and I think they had a lot of personality, and I really liked the way that everybody kind of played their part. I think the ones that really kind of steal the show in this, as far as performances go, the ones that really kind of drew me in the most was Charlie Heaton and his Cannonball. He's a really likable character. The pain, the struggle, the way he conveys all these kind of emotions in this, I thought were really well handled. And I think we don't really get into too much of the backstories of each of these characters as I think we should have. I think there should have been a little more exploration of that. Maybe that was something they wanted to do later. Maybe it was stuff that was on the cutting room floor. If there's an extended version of this where we kind of flesh them out a little bit more, I think that would be really interesting. I'd like to have seen a little bit more of Maisie Williams' backstory, but her as the character in the present day, I really enjoyed what they did with her and the relationship that kind of blossomed out of that with her and the other characters. Of course, Anya Taylor-Joy was doing a great job chewing up the scenery in this, playing, of course, Magic, and she was definitely an interesting character to kind of feel out. Again, a backstory that wasn't too fleshed out, but I think out of the group, she has some skeletons in the closet that I wish we kind of explored a little bit more. Then we have Henry Zaga's character, Sunspot. Not a whole lot going on there. We get a quick little touch on his backstory. It doesn't really go into it all that deep. And the character that we are experiencing this all through, Blue Hunt's Danielle Moonstar, is, I think, honestly, the weakest link in this movie as far as, and I don't think it's necessarily on her. I think this falls on the direction as well as the dialogue and the script in this movie. It's just like everything, a lot of the things she says seems like it kind of comes out of like a early 2000s Disney TV movie. Like, I don't know what it is. It's just kind of the way that she delivers a lot of the dialogue, and I think a lot of the dialogue itself is a little not as smoothed out or natural sounding as they would want it to be. The characters themselves are really interesting. I think that there was a lot more that could have been explored with a lot of them, but I do like when they start to band together, they start to explore, they start to play off of each other's insecurities and strengths and all of that, and when everything kind of comes to a head, it really starts to get going. This movie is kind of all over the place with its pacing. And the way this movie kind of resolves itself towards the end is also just a little abrupt, and it just kind of seems very convenient. I don't feel like it was built up enough, and I think that comes down to the writing and the way that the script was structured. I think that we didn't get enough of a buildup that kind of gave us that resolution. From the setup to the resolution, that journey in the middle is not really fleshed out enough to really kind of warrant it. It just didn't really feel all that earned or that satisfying, to be completely honest. I think if they had hammered out the script a little bit more, paced it out a little better, and I mean, this is something that was made over 2 years ago at this point when they originally shot and filmed it and it went dead. And they were supposed to do reshoots and stuff like that. I don't know if it would, I think originally there was talks about changing the entire tone of it, when they kind of sold it as this horror movie, and in some ways there are some really good visual horrific kind of elements to it, but I don't think they really commit to it full force in the way that I think that would have made it really interesting. There's some good imagery in here, but I don't think we explore the characters enough and that horror element enough. It's still fun, it's still enjoyable, but like I said, most of that is because of the cast, the characters, their interactions, and the way they kind of play and build off of each other. So I don't know. I don't think anybody was expecting this movie with everything surrounding it to come out and just blow us out of the water. I think a lot of us had our expectations kind of in check going into this. And at the end of the day, I'm just glad it's finally out. It's out in the ether. I'm curious to see what everybody else is saying. I know this isn't available at everywhere. I know just theaters are not open everywhere. Thankfully, the one I'm near, it's kind of isolated enough as it is. There's not many people going, and they're putting a lot of measures in place to keep it sanitized, safe, and practice social distancing and all that while you're inside. And for larger cities, larger areas, that's going to be a lot more difficult. I've heard a lot of people are buying plane tickets to try to see Tenet in states that are showing it, and I don't know how that's all going to pan out. And we're in a very different landscape than we have ever been when it comes to movies now, and I'm curious to see just how this evolves going forward. You know, it's going to be a little bit of a busy weekend. I'm going to try to see the David Copperfield movie with Dev Patel and Peter Capaldi this weekend as well. And then Tenet finally recently releases here on Monday, which is kind of strange, a Monday release. But I'm going to try to check that out as well. And then tomorrow, of course, we have the VOD release of Bill and Ted 3. So I'll be checking that out well. It's going to be a busy weekend. So I want to know your thoughts. What was your expectations for this movie? What were you wanting out of this film? Have you had a chance to even see it yet? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below, and we'll carry on that conversation after the video. Take care, everybody.